All good to go. Hello all, and welcome to the webinar on data center networking and automation, hosted by DiGiCOR. My name is Samantha, and I'm a member of the marketing team at DiGiCOR. DiGiCOR is an Australian IT company that provides a wide range of industry-leading ICT infrastructure and software solutions to help meet the demands and different industries and enterprises. DiGiCOR partners with global technology leaders such as Juniper Networks to deliver innovative and reliable networking and security solutions that enable businesses to transform their customer experience, grow their revenue, and optimize their operations. In this webinar, we will introduce to you some of the Juniper products and services, such as Juniper Data Center Networks, Juniper Switches, Juniper Apstra, Zero Trust Data Center, and we will also have some demos. DiGiCOR also offers competitive pricing, flexible financing options, and customized solutions to suit the needs and budgets of its clients. DiGiCOR is your trusted partner for Juniper solutions and more. We hope you enjoy this webinar and learn something new. If you have any questions or comments throughout the webinar, please feel free to type them in the Q&A section or raise your hand. We will try to answer all of them as best as we can. And if you would like to contact us after the webinar, you can visit our website or call us. You can also follow us on social media to stay updated on our news and promotions. I'm now very excited to introduce to you our guest speakers for today from Juniper Networks, Bojan and Ivan Evans. Bojan is a seasoned professional serving as a Juniper Senior Systems Engineer for over 7 years. His expertise lies in data center design and deployment, primarily within the ANZ region. Currently, his focus is on automated data center operations, harnessing the power of intent-based networking and Apstra management. And Ivan is head of Juniper Data Center business in ANZ with more than 2 decades of experience in the network industry. Ivan's journey has taken him through esteemed organizations like Bay Networks, Nortel, and Cisco, and in 2022 he joined Juniper to lead the Apstra LED data center portfolio for Australia and New Zealand. So we are very excited to have them here with us, and I will now extend a warm welcome and hand over to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samantha, for that lovely introduction to us. Yes, my name is Bojan, based here out of Melbourne as a Juniper Senior Sales Engineer. And today with us, we also have Ivan Evans, our Head of Data Center Business for New Zealand and Australia. So let us take this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Juniper Data Center Solutions and how we really help the enterprise achieve their goals in a fast, scalable, reliable manner. So Ivan, to kick off the discussion, could you please give us a quick introduction to Juniper and Juniper Vision?
Thanks, Bojan. And I also want to thank Samantha and DiGiCOR for hosting us this afternoon. Very honored to be here. We're going to try and make this session interactive, so Bojan and I will be bouncing off of each other. And the first question that Bojan shot to me, of course, is effectively, who is Juniper? So Juniper has been around since the mid to late 90s. We are most famous for being at the heart of the internet. So if you peel off the paper and look into the internet itself, you'll actually see at the very heart, every single service provider in Australia is using Juniper routers from large to small. Why? We're inherently scalable, inherently IP-based, and I would say that Juniper has got a reputation of being kings of scalability, kings of IP, kings of BGP. Our strategy has been very straightforward. For the longest time, we focused on the service provider market. But in the last 5 or 6 years, we've grown as an adjacent provider to enterprise. And the way that we've done that is we've taken our core heartland of internet first technology, BGP grade scalability and reliability, and we've made it consumable for enterprises with very simple to use interfaces. So we're going to look today at a product called Apstra. Bojan's going to take us through a demonstration towards the end of today's presentation. You're going to see that we've taken a very complicated technology, which is IP, VXLAN, and EVPN, and we've made it very simple to consume, especially when benchmarked against our competition. So when you come to Juniper, you're going to get world-class scale, world-class reliability, and now a very easy-to-use operate model. Juniper now plays in really 4 key segments. We play in the wide area network space, where we're best known for. In the data center space, where we're increasing our business year on year. Last year, 170% growth, fantastic growth. In campus with our Wi-Fi solutions and our campus switching solutions and our wide area network solutions. And of course, with security. So pervasive in everything that we do is security. We're huge in service provider, we're huge in cloud, and we're growing exponentially in enterprise, mostly because of the enhanced user experience that we're putting in front of our customers. So, Bojan.
So thanks, Ivan, on that quick introduction. So one thing that is kind of interesting these days, whenever we start discussing data centers and start talking about it with our customers and partners, is a lot of people want to know, well, what is really going on? A lot of discussion in the past was around the data center maybe will slowly die out and everyone will move to public cloud and take the advantage of the public cloud infrastructure. But I'm curious, what are you hearing, Ivan, out there in the wild?
I can tell you, Bojan and DiGiCOR customers and team, it wasn't much fun selling data center about 5 years ago. Pretty much every time I went to visit a customer, the answer was always, hey, we're capping our data center spend and we're growing into the public cloud. In fact, many CIOs and CTOs had a cloud first strategy or a cloud only strategy about 5 years ago. But what we've observed is over the last couple of years is that bill shock has started to creep in. There's actually a very interesting analogy around the name public cloud itself. The public cloud is not public, just as Disneyland is not a public park. Amazon is not a public cloud, right? You've got to pay to get in and you've got to pay to get out. And I think as customers have matured their operate model and actually figured out, hey, this is really expensive to exist in the public cloud exclusively, we're seeing a new model, which we're calling hybrid cloud, or the industry is calling hybrid cloud. And that basically means customers that have their own physical premises are reinvesting in those and using the best of both environments. And customers that have turned down their own premise are now moving to colo. So colo is now, again, a mega trend in the industry. You see the skyline starting to fill up with customers such as NextDC, also a great customer for Juniper. Macquarie Telecom, another great customer for Juniper. Many of the largest colo providers are actually using Juniper infrastructure, which is great for us. And what we're seeing here, and actually it's driven by industry back data, is that probably the majority of customers now in enterprise have picked up what we call this hybrid cloud strategies. This is a mixture of on-prem, colo, and public cloud. And really, what we've been focusing on is making your own your own private cloud very easy to consume and very easy to operate. If we look at why people are going to public cloud, it was largely because it was a lot more agile and easy to operate. So customers buying the operate model. So we brought that operate model from the cloud where we've got our expertise, and we brought it back to on-prem. So hopefully that answers your question, Bojan.
Yes, thank you. And that's right. That's what I'm hearing from my customers as well. It's a lot of them do want to retain some sort of a sovereignty on their data center and maintain that within their bounds, but they are telling us and asking us to make the usability of that private cloud just like the public cloud. In other words, please help me streamline my operation such that I can easily manage private and public and survive in that sort of a complex environment. Now that we kind of know that the on-prem cloud data center is very much the thing, Ivan, could you probably perhaps tell us what are some of the key elements that you see are really important to fulfill in order to deliver a successful private cloud data center?
I think before we get there, Bojan, are we going to have a poll? I think we are.
Yes, we can do that. Yep. Let's do that. So the question is, what is your current public versus private cloud strategy? Obviously reflecting to some of the elements that Ivan and I were mentioning. Just give it a second.
Members, if you can pick, is it just one option? It's a single choice, this one. So just pick one. We'll give you 10 seconds. It shouldn't be a difficult question. And then we'll move to the...
We also just have Christopher who has raised his hand if you wanted to.
Hi, Christopher.
Yes. Hi, Christopher. Go ahead, please.
Okay, we might come back to Christopher. Let's keep the flow going. We don't hear Christopher's audio at this point, and I don't see a question.
Can we see the poll results now?
Yeah,
oh, very interesting.
That reflects the message. So thanks, guys. And only one of you is closing your data center. Okay, that's good. That's good news. Okay, so Bojan, if you don't mind just bringing the slide back to the forefront.
Yes, and thank you very much for polling. That's exactly what we expected. Most of our customers tell us about the hybrid is the way forward for them. So let's have a look at those essential 8, Ivan, please.
Yeah, sure, Phil. Now, look, over my time in this industry, I've come up with 8 essential elements. So you're talking to Juniper. The good news is we've got, I believe, the world's most scalable and flexible switching portfolio. We're not going to talk to you about switches today. Please assume that, and be assured that we have switches that cater for enterprise from small to large, right the way through to cloud and service provider. We've got the hardware, and we've focused our hardware development on performance, and we've been very, very laser focused on our green credentials as well. On average, a Juniper switch will consume less power than our competition, up to about 30%, which means less CO2, less energy costs, less cooling. So we're very efficient in the power space. Then we've got that operating system. So the same operating system that's been developed all of these years, nearly 30 years worth of development, all around service provider grade, scale, and feature sets. So that we've got that in the bag, right? So that builds you your hardware and your software as a combination. The thing that we introduced in 2021 was the acquisition of Apstra. Now we're going to show you what Apstra means for the data center, but basically it's an easy to consume operate model for a modern data center that leverages the power of Junos and that world-class switching portfolio. Then there's migration services. How are you going to get from, assuming that you're not using Juniper today, how are you going to get from your legacy vendor to this new world-class data center operate model? Well, that's where DiGiCOR comes in, right? So we've got a fantastic partnership with them. We've got some really good customer wins already under our belt. DiGiCOR services in partnership with Juniper services where applicable. If it's a very large customer, we might work together. We've got the migration services. Then the support in country. We've got our Juniper TAC. That's our very well trained and very experienced engineers in country. Should you need that support, it's there 24/7. Then we've got systems integration as point number 6. So ServiceNow. Let's imagine ServiceNow is your choice of orchestrator. We tie into that so that you can create a private cloud experience out of something like ServiceNow, or maybe it's Terraform, or maybe it's Ansible. But when we're talking about systems integration, we know that you've probably gone ahead and made some strategic choices. And because of our scale globally, it's almost certain that we've done that systems integration before. So that's in the box, and it's out of the box for DiGiCOR customers. Of course, you can't have a data center without security. Your most important assets are in your data center. We've thought that through, and we're going to show you the Juniper solution as we get a little deeper into this presentation. And I always think the most important thing is actually the people. Very often, I talk to customers that tell me, hey, we've invested in skills for our staff already. We don't have Juniper skills and Juniper staff. So what Juniper's actually gone ahead and done is we've built a migration training set from, if you want to call it, a legacy vendor to our new leading edge technologies. And that's a 7-hour training course that takes you from, let's just name them, your legacy Cisco CCNA certifications to a Juniper certification with just 7 hours. My favorite mantra here is no one got promoted for buying Cisco anymore, right? If you want to take your data center to the next level, please consider Juniper and consider this world-class portfolio of products and services that we have together.
Thank you, Ivan. So let's maybe go into the second poll now that we've heard about this essential 8. So Rohan, thank you for putting it up. So this time you can actually choose multiple out of those 8. You can vote on what's most important to you. You can choose all of them if you wish, but it would be interesting to know how you see it. Samantha, do we have any other questions that we could potentially answer whilst we are waiting for the poll to come through?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, thank you.
So Bojan, I'm going to ask you a question now. So of those 8, what do you believe over the past 3 years has triggered Juniper's growth in data center? We've seen incredible growth in our business, right? What's been the catalyst?
Yes, so essentially, in my opinion, the one that is most helpful, I'll tell you in a second, but maybe Rohan, if you're ready, maybe we can see the poll. I'm just sort of curious to whether it's going to go online with my prediction. And sure enough, yeah, I would definitely say it's automation and management. Automation and management is really, really important in order for you to have that sort of first experience in terms of easily operating and managing the data center. The data center has become rather complex from the perspective that we now virtualize the environment, just like we virtualize the bare metal servers with VMs and containers. And when we do that, we have to introduce a set of protocols that run on top of each other. So we have the underlay network, the overlay network. All that introduces a lot of complexity. And if you really want to carry on doing this the old way through the CLI, sure, you can do it, but it becomes hard, it becomes slow, it becomes cumbersome and error prone. So automation and management is definitely where we need to head towards. So what's Apstra done about it, or what's Juniper done about it, is to actually bring that idea through the Apstra product. So Apstra follows what we call an intent-based networking. And I believe intent-based networking term was probably coined by somebody like Gartner. But essentially, what does that mean to you? So if I was to look the traditional way how we manage the networks through the CLI, that meant that I had to have an engineer, first of all, that knows the networks and knows the networking protocols, etc. Then they have to be skilled in a particular vendor CLI in order to translate that knowledge into the code that will run on the device. So that's good. That's fine when you have one vendors. It's sort of okay when you have 2 vendors in play, but when you have more than 2 vendors, this becomes really difficult because you've got to go and pick and choose different engineers to look after that environment. So why don't we have a system where the end user, the operator, can describe its intent to what it wants to do, and that intent is taken by something like Apstra, and it's actually modeled. So this is how we do it in Apstra. We take the intent through the either graphical interface or through the APIs if we require this sort of a service chain automation. We model that intent inside of the graph database that lives inside of Apstra. So the end user has to provide us some minimal details like, hey, tell me what type of a topology you want to deploy and like what sort of a ports and interfaces are going to be in play here, the speeds. Tell me also like the IP address range that you want to use for particular things and maybe the AS system. And then what happens, the Apstra will actually model that into a graph database and create, if you want, a replica of that network without actually having to put anything into any device yet. The most important about this is that this becomes your single source of truth. So everything you have done here is now done inside of Apstra. You are not, drawing any VCO diagrams. You're not creating any spreadsheets or anything. All of the information is contained within Apstra. Apstra then takes that information and actually generates the CLI. And what's really good about Apstra, it has multi-vendor support. So Apstra will generate in the language of one of the vendors that you see at the bottom. So it will literally generate the CLI and push it down into the switches or routers, depending which devices you're using, and program those devices for you as intended. So this is a great advantage because now you don't have to speak 7 languages in order to be able to communicate. You let Apstra do that for you. Apstra speaks all the different languages. What happens then is the data is fed through the telemetry from the network back into the Apstra system. And this is very important. This is where we say Apstra is a stateful environment, where something like Ansible script or a Python script isn't, because once you push the script into the network will get altered or not, depending what happened to the script. But typically, you don't get a good feedback to what's going on now. With Apstra, it's different. We have the telemetry coming back through, and that telemetry is, fed through the model again, and then we continuously analyze that. So we have this intent-based analytics running continuously, which is comparing the current state of your network against the intended infrastructure and services that you have put in. If everything is fine, then everything is running good and green, and Apstra is just reporting back to you. But what happens if things go wrong? So that's again where we differentiate. Apstra comes together with this closed loop validation. And essentially what it does, it will compare the difference, and then it will either notify you or recommend a way to fix it, or even Apstra goes as far as resolving it, like by usually we just put a button there and say like, hey, do you want to resolve this? And then Apstra will give you an option how to do it. So this is very, very powerful mechanism and very different to what we are used to in terms of how we operate those data centers and networks in the data center. So really, really much more advanced than for what we used to be the case.
Thanks, Bojan. Now, look, Bojan's an engineer, systems engineer at heart. I'm the sales guy, if you want to call it that. So I'm just going to dumb that down exactly what Bojan said into a really simple graphic. So basically what Apstra is a digital twin of your physical environment. So on the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see an operator that's got a view of the physical environment. And on the left-hand side, the digital twin is an exact copy of that physical environment in software. So when we want to go ahead and do our moves, adds, and changes, which we all know are our highest risk events. So, when the network goes down, it's always because somebody did something right, a human. It's very, very rarely that it's a software error or a hardware error. Almost certainly someone changed something. So what we do with Apstra, this is a significant differentiator to us and our competition, is that you do not make changes to the physical network. You render those changes into your digital twin first. So this means you have effectively a digital sandpit. So you go ahead and add that VLAN, add that VRF, add that new server, add that new rack in the digital twin. Apstra then gives you, and we'll go through it in the demo very shortly, a red, amber, and green traffic light model. If those changes are good, we're going to go ahead and give you what we call a commit tab. And when those changes are green, you can go ahead and render those changes at the time that you make of your choosing. If there are any unexpected results, let's say an external system required a VLAN that you've chosen to delete, there's actually a rollback function as well. So this gives you the best of Juniper. Juniper's famous for the brilliant operating model at the command line. We've actually taken that now and made it very simple to use with a beautiful graphical user interface. You don't need a sandpit anymore. You've got your digital twin. Apstra changes the game completely. And this makes your data center inherently low risk and extremely reliable. So Bojan, I have a question for you now. So we mentioned before, we touched on EVPN and VXLAN. That's potentially very complicated, right? And Juniper's got an enormous portfolio of switches, and you can go ahead and configure that enormous portfolio of switches in almost an infinite way. How do we make it very easy for the audience and for our customers to go ahead and deploy with confidence. How do we do that?
Yes, so correct. Like it's a little bit like this. If I go to the market, food market, like a green market, I can say like, look, I can cook something. I go into the market, there's millions of ingredients to choose from, and then I, buy 5 or 6 ingredients, get home, half I use, half I don't use. I, sort of put something together, and it's a meal. All right, it's, no one was hungry after that. It was all right. But when we want to have a really nice treat and we really want to have a nice food, we usually go to the restaurant. Why? Because there's a professional there that will cook a meal properly, and you know that every time it's going to be the same, it's going to be really tasty, and it's going to be quality. And then we also personally tend to say like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to just do this really nilly-willy and just guess. I'm going to get some good recipes in a book, and I'm going to cook this for myself a little bit more proper. So it's repeatable, and it shows that quality. So it's a similar thing for us building the networks and building these data center fabrics. What Juniper is actually doing, we create these validated designs. These designs are actually, put together by Juniper using the Juniper Data Center building blocks. And then we give you these sort of recipes to really do a proper repeatable quality outcome when you build your data center yourself. So, that brings the quality. That really mitigates the risk because you're getting something that's fully tested and validated. It's fully documented. So you know like exactly how this recipe runs and what are the ingredients that I have to buy. There's no wastage because you're not buying what you don't need to buy. You're just specifically buying what we tell you to do. We also incorporate some best practices, not some, but all of the best practices that we know into these. So you don't have to like scratch your head, what should I do here? What would be a smart thing to do? Should I go this way or should I go that way? We will actually give you some ideas why it's the way that it is. And the outcome is very predictable for you. So that means that you will be operating really an excellence of a data center very predictably. And you will be able to put these things very quickly and be assured that it's all validated. So that's what we do in Juniper.
A rhetorical question. Surely this is only for really big customers, right? What about the regular size customers here in Australia or even the smaller ones?
Yeah, that's a great question, because yes, not at all. So as I was mentioning earlier, we put together these building blocks for you in order to be able to cater for any kind of a party if you want. So just as an example here, these are the validated designs that are actually also part of the Apstra environment. And when we go into Apstra, we can choose between a small, medium, large, very large. We catered for all of them. They're all there for you to really create a great data center fabric. And on top of that, we also cater within Apstra and with our designs for your DCI. So this is your data center interconnect. So you can, spread this design across multiple DCs and still make sure that everything will work just as designed.
That's cool. So we just got 4.2, which has had some really good enhancements to the DCI architectures. So I think, Bojan, I was going to cover this slide here. I'll keep it super simple. Look, Apstra is, and let's be really clear, it's a virtual machine. We weren't very clear on that before. So Apstra is an application that sits in the out-of-band management network of your data center, and it connects to all of the switches, and it's involved in the birth of the design of the network. So when you sit down with DiGiCOR or with Juniper or a combination of both, very often you're going to be deciding how many data centers do you have, how many racks of equipment do you have, therefore how many spines and how many leaves do you have. And this becomes part of what we call day zero, where the design phase is completed, and that starts the intent-based networking. Once you've got that rendered in the tool, which is really simple to do, you're going to go ahead and then you're going to ask Apstra to build the configurations for you. Now, hopefully you'll pick Juniper switches. We believe we've got the best switches on the market, but there are always considerations when you're picking your hardware vendor. Who can get the equipment fastest? Who's got the best commercial model? Who do you have on staff that feels very confident with that vendor? There might be other reasons that you might pick a different vendor. But at that point, Apstra is going to go ahead and render the configurations for the vendor that you choose. That's why we become multi-vendor. So we do that at day one. But the secret sauce, and this is where Apstra gets really good, is that it lives with you in the out-of-band management network, and it becomes not only the single source of truth, but because it has the single source of truth, it can actually listen to that telemetry that Bojan told you about before and give you a really clean dashboard, which is red, amber, and green, that allows you to double down and fix any issues before they become affecting of the traffic. So that might be, think of it as a black and white thing. First of all, is something broken? Well, okay, here is the root cause analysis. But it's better than that. You can actually say, is something failing? So do you have a gray failure? Is an optic likely to fail because its optical transceiver power is dropping? Well, we can tell you about that too. So we can actually tell you about the health of your SFPs, about the health of your switches, about the health of your protocols, whether the system is configured as designed. And we give you really simple screen pops, or we can actually signal those up to upper layer orchestrators as well to give you a really good operating model. And of course, it's inherently secure. So we could spend a lot of time talking about this, but we're going to move ahead. And Bojan, maybe you can tell us.
So correct. That's precisely that Apstra comes with this very comprehensive pervasive visibility, Ivan, as you're mentioning, especially on the day two when you're now running and operating, you're doing your day-to-day alarming, monitoring, troubleshooting, as well as like, don't forget that you need to constantly add moves and changes. There will be a server removed, there will be a new server added, there will be a rack that needs to be migrated, there will be a bunch of VMs that have to change, from one rack to another, etc. So that is very, very important when you're operating your data center, because that's where you're spending most of your time and effort. So fast troubleshooting, performance, capacity, and cost management is absolutely essential. And then, of course, that's coupled with your security and compliance. And Apstra delivers this absolutely end-to-end to you. Some of the methods that we use, we have a very comprehensive telemetry, a lot of integrated flow data. In the latest release, we will be actually providing you with the ability to visualize application flow throughout the data center. So for example, you will be able to see who are my top talkers, what is the application that takes most of resources, and then all of a sudden that opens a lot more visibility to you in terms of troubleshooting and security and everything else. The other thing that is also interesting is when compared to the traditional monitoring tools is that we actually open this graph database that is the soul of Apstra to you to query and utilize. So essentially, an example for that would be like, hey, my vendor just told me that there was a batch of serial numbers on a particular SFP that I purchased, maybe 60 of them, that actually has a problem, a fault. I need to replace them. By querying the graph database, I can quickly pull out those serial numbers and give you a report and tell you like, yeah, here is the SFPs. Those are the ones that I see installed in the network and operating, and these are the devices that you need to go to collect them from on those ports. So that's very, very powerful. So that sort of enrichment of data that is not purely what we see in the network, but what we also have in the database.
Thanks,
so.
I was going to say, we just had a question from Bernard, which actually coincidentally ties straight into the next slide. So we actually commissioned a report from Forrester about the savings that Apstra brings. So it's not just, you've got a great network now with really good reliability and very low risk from Juniper. Congratulations, you've moved away from the legacy vendor. But actually, there's tangible savings, like really tangible savings. So we're going to go ahead, Samantha, I'm going to send it to you. Send you the copy of the Forrester report from Samantha, which has got really clear numbers in it, showing you not just fluffy numbers, but actually real ROI tangible benefits that the system has.
Yeah, and by all means, if you really want to know more, we actually have a mechanism to a bit of a TCO calculation for you as well. So. Just please engage with DiGiCOR and we can help you with that as well. So now, Ivan, that we spoke a little bit about Apstra and how Apstra operates, what intent-based networking and analytics means for us. Like maybe you can give us a word on like what about like our switching portfolio? What's Juniper doing from the switching portfolio perspective to keep up with new developments, hybrid integration, etc.?
Good question. Look, I think Samantha mentioned I started off in this country working at Bay Networks, and when I was there, the Ethernet switching ports were 10.100. That, of course, moved to gigabit. Now we're all familiar with 2.5 gig, and then 10 gig, and then 40 gig, 100 gig. Well, guess what? We're shipping already 400 gig switches. We've been doing that for a while, and so our competition. We're just about to release 800 gig on our switching portfolio. And surprise, surprise, 1.6 terabytes is actually just down the line. Now, why do we need that bandwidth? Why do we need it? Well, some of our customers, our large banking customers, our large insurance companies, and some of our service provider customers, believe it or not, are starting to consume that bandwidth, especially around AI ML workloads. So we've all heard of this AI ML trend. It's happening. Around that are these enormous GPUs with enormous bandwidth requirements, which require lossless carriage. Well, guess what? 100 gig doesn't cut it. Neither does 400 gig. Neither does 800 gig. 1.6 is actually the trend. So needless to say, Juniper is the king of hardware. And we've got the brilliant Junos sitting on top of that. We've got deep buffer, shallow buffer. We're not going to bore you with all those things now. We actually make our own ASICs as well as using Broadcom ASICs. Would you mind just going back one slide?
Sure. Yep.
And then we've got that telemetry as well. So we've got the ability to actually see what's going on. So it's no good having a Ferrari and putting a blindfold on and driving it down the street, right? You need to look through the window. You need to understand what's going on. You need to stop at a traffic light or go ahead. So we've got that telemetry. We've got that graphical user interface tool, and it's all API driven. So next slide, please. Bojan.
Yeah, sorry, you touched on the operating system, and that's definitely another element that's very, very important. So what can you tell us about Junos operating system, Ivan?
Well, it's been around since the 90s. You know, when Junos was born, it was designed to go into the heart of the internet and be the world's best BGP platform. And that's exactly what it did. Within a year of launch, Juniper came from nowhere to be the leading provider of internet infrastructure, which was incredible. So inherently high scale, inherently low risk. The best thing about Juniper is that we've got one operating system, I think. So if you compare it to our competition, which I'm not going to name, there's multiple operating systems, which means that you need to do your own systems integration. I was talking to a very large retailer here in Australia, and they were complaining to me about their other vendor, because every time they buy a new box, specifically from a new product line, they're having to do their own systems integration and their own system testing. With Juniper, we have one operating system, one API, very easy to integrate. So all that service provider scale is now coming down to enterprise. From day one, we've made this thing programmable. It's always been about the CLI, but it's beyond that. For upper layer systems that need to orchestrate, Juniper has out of the gate thought about programmability right the way through. And because we've had one operating system for all these years, the feature depth with Juniper is incredible, right? You can think of a feature, we have it, and it's operator friendly. So Bojan, I have a question for you. I spoke about this portfolio. What did we miss? What did we miss?
Yes, of course. Let's not forget our security, right? We can't operate our data center without securing the data center. So, and this is very important. That's probably maybe second thing after the automation. Like, how do I make sure that applications running within the data center are actually secured? There is nothing malicious going on. The data is not getting stolen or abused in any way. So from Juniper perspective, our security solution has been around just as long as, I guess, Junos, maybe a little bit less than that. But effectively, Juniper has a very proven security solution. So whether that's a physical firewall in the form of an sRX box, or what we now need in data center is a more of a virtualized or containerized form of it, we have it. That's then coupled with some of the Apstra capabilities, and of course our security director and advanced threat protection. So, sort of how does it come together? Well, first of all, we secure the data center applications utilizing vSRX and cSRX within the data center. At the edge of the data center, we install on SRX as a DC WAN gateway product or box. And again, we enforce all of the communication that's happening between the outside world and the inside world. But we don't stop there. We equally can install the same sort of a vSRX, cSRX into the cloud services. So this is very important when you are talking about that hybrid model, because from your perspective, everything is the same. It's orchestrated and commanded from the same security director, whether there's a public instance or a private instance. And not only that, you can also extend this further down into your campus environments and your, your like head office, etc. So it's a very well integrated solution. Another thing to mention that's also interesting, Juniper Apstra does have a piece that is called security policy. And what Juniper Apstra does there, it's capable of programming the access lists or firewall functionality on your switches. So this is like a stateful programming. It's not really what a firewall does. Firewall is a stateful product, but for people who use switches and routers, we know very well what that means. It means that I can, make some decisions immediately on the device in terms of like, hey, I don't want to allow those two subnets talking, and I'm going to drop the packets in between them. So Apstra can program that, but where it differs is that Apstra will actually analyze your security programming, your policy, and then, for example, it will resolve any conflicts. So if you were to do this manually, punching ACLs into the switches, the nightmare of trying to manage that, right? It's like it's enough for you to make a mistake on one switch and for half of the network not to work as it should. And then you're like looking for this needle in a haystack to fix it. With Apstra, all the policies essentially, or access lists essentially managed by it. And then what Apstra on top of it does, it will actually check that you're not doing something silly. For example, when you're putting your precedences in terms of like what should happen first, second, and third, Apstra will tell you, hey, look, you are already blocking that port before. And if you really want these two to communicate, well, you either got to go back there and change the precedence, or you've got to find another way to do this. So it actually does give you suggestions how to resolve these conflicts, but it's very, very powerful. I haven't seen anything like that anywhere else. So yeah, definitely don't forget the security. We have a full solution for securing your data center.
Thanks, Bojan. Now, another important part, when we're in the data center, most likely we're in a VMware world, right? So one of the founders of Apstra is David Sheridan, who was also one of the early angel investors in VMware. And as such, VMware is very much at the forefront of our thoughts when we built the Apstra product. So it's super simple. You go into Apstra, you type in the credentials of your vCenter. Apstra will actually extract all of the actionable intelligence from your vCenter, and that will give you a really good view into the virtual world for compute and virtualization, and the NSX world for virtual networking as well. Now, if we think about finger pointing and blaming, almost everyone blames the network when something in the application layer is not working, and very rarely is it the network. So what we do with Apstra is we give you a view into the, if you want to call it the compute and application world. We can help proactively troubleshoot what something could easily be a misconfiguration at the virtual layer married to the physical layer. We'll give you a demonstration of this. If you approach DiGiCOR directly, we'll come and show you this. It's actually game changing in terms of making sure your reliability and your risk is eliminated when we're moving from virtual to physical. Bojan, let's keep the pace up because I'm a little bit worried about time.
It definitely. I just wanted to say, it definitely really helps with that sort of a finger pointing, like, it's your virtual environment. You haven't provisioned the VLAN correctly. No, your physical network doesn't have the VLAN. So with Apstra, we actually open it up. Apstra will see what's provisioned in the virtual environment, and then we'll compare it what's the intent in the physical environment. And if it sees the discrepancies, it will actually tell you, even offer you a button to click on to fix it. So one more thing I really want to mention here, this is again to reflect on our efforts to really make this private cloud data center integrate very well with your public, so that hybrid model. So what we have done recently with Apstra is we have introduced the Terraform provider. So Terraform provider is like a piece of software that runs on Apstra. But if you are service chaining between your private cloud and your public cloud, you're most likely to use Terraform as one of the tools. And from your perspective, what's really important is like you want to write your Terraform scripts and automation as such that, yeah, you can push it down into the public just like you're pushing into the private, and take the advantage of this service chaining. So all those parameters that Terraform brings along, like the automated documentation, etc., all like works seamlessly with your private environment. So maybe as a closing note, Ivan, you can just one more time reflect on Apstra environment, and then we'll try to do a quick poll and a quick demo.
Yeah, I think the demo is going to be really, really powerful. So not quite the closing remarks, Bojan, but just to wrap up the last little bit of PowerPoint before we show you a very short demo. Look, Juniper has done a fantastic job with Apstra. We've made the data center infrastructure really easy to consume, and we've made it that you can operate your private cloud as though it's a public cloud at extreme reduced cost. So you're going to go into an environment with Juniper, and you're going to be able to integrate this into something like Terraform or Ansible or Postman. It's going to be secure. You're going to have a very, we'll call it a modern experience, something that's not going to lock you in. So yes, we would like to be your provider of switching and a network operating system. But hey, if you want to use Cisco or Arista or Dell, you can, if you like the operate model from Juniper, which so far we've had 100% positive feedback on. In fact, DiGiCOR have got some fantastic customers already. If you like the operate model, you go ahead and pick your vendor at the right time. So, Bojan, why don't you show us a bit of a demo? We don't have an enormous time, so maybe one or two short demos, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. So, Rohan, do we want to do a quick poll? Maybe last question. Thank you. So yeah, so I will show you a demo in a second. Obviously, I won't be able to show you everything that Apstra does because we don't have a lot of time. But at least I hope it will give you a bit of a taste of what Apstra looks like, what the environment looks like, what it does. And then, of course, you can always come back to us and talk to us.
Normally, guys, we take about 90 minutes for a demo. So again, contact us through DiGiCOR. We'd love to come and talk to you directly and customize this for you, right? We typically turn on our ears first, and then we turn on our mouths second.
And Samantha, is there any questions for us that we still have unanswered?
Not for the moment, no, there's not.
Okay, so let's go ahead and see the poll. Okay, that's interesting. So a little bit of like, in general, I would say like most of the people wants to do something, either planning to refresh or upgrade. But yeah, that's interesting. In some, maybe no plans for the time being. Fair enough. All right, let us take a look at a quick demo. So the first demo I'm gonna do. So let me just tell you, this is these are pre-recorded demos, just a little bit easier for me to handle this in the webinar. The picture may be a little bit soft for you, but that's just to make sure that our webinar tool can display this correctly to you. So the first demo I'm going to show you is just a little bit of the Apstra operating environment, and then some of the features like root cause analysis and how does this intent-based networking work in our favor. So here is the sort of a landing page for a given data center. We call it a dashboard. Here at a glance, you can see what's going on in your environment. Now, what happened is last night we had a failure. The switch has gone down. We have sent a technician to replace it, and the switch has been replaced. I've got onto the shift this morning, and I'm looking at Apstra, and things are not quite the way they should be. I can see some alarms there, and I can very quickly see that my IP fabric is showing some problems. I can see some BGP problems, cabling problems. I can see that my route table is like completely out of the whack, 28 anomalies there. As I keep scrolling down, I also have this view of node status, and these little blobs are actually kind of trying to tell me where to focus, which elements of the data center, which switches, in this instance, like my border leaves, seems to be picking up the problem. So I can see that I have a couple of BGP anomalies there, one cabling anomaly, and overall things are unhappy. If I go into this active tab now, I can actually see the whole of data center, and I can see my devices. So I can see that the problems here are more in and around the spine too, and something is not quite right. On the right-hand side, I also have these ribbons trying to tell me where things are going a little bit wrong. So I'm just going to drill into one of the switches here, and I can drill into those ribbons to get a little bit more information. This is just to kind of show you what this environment looks like. So here, as you just saw, it was telling me that two routes are not what the intended model should look like. So the next thing I do, I go and click on that spine switch, and now I can see something interesting here. I see these sort of a crisscross lines. That doesn't look right. It's kind of indicating to me, like, has the technician, when they've installed the switch, made a mistake and didn't collect the cables the proper way around? So let us have a look at the root cause analysis. So the root cause analysis is now really going to go help us narrow this down. Out of all these alarms, what is it actually that is wrong? So I'm going to click into the connectivity, and immediately tells me that the problem is between spine 2 and the leaf switches in that rack. And it tells me that it seems to be that those two links between the switches are not right. I can also click on this tabular view, which will actually give me some detailed information to what's going on. So definitely showing me here, hey, those links are not the way they should be. They are not the way how it was intended to be connected. So, okay, I got it. The technician must have connected them the wrong way around. So what do I do now? Do I send him back on site and get him to reconnect this? I was to say he's not going to make another mistake. So at this point, Apstra can offer you an alternative way to fix this, actually. So if we go back to the staged and we take a look at the links tab, what we can do is we can query this LLDP button, and the LLDP will now go ahead and provide some information back into the Apstra graph database and tell it how the switches are actually connected. Now, clicking on that blue button, I am now offered an option to actually correct this by just following the information that we have collected out of the network. So essentially, when I click on update, Apstra has now updated its operating database underneath to say, like, look, we'll move these links across. We'll correct this. Nothing happens to the network until you're absolutely ready to commit this. So now you can click on an uncommitted tab and review the change. And finally, when you're ready, you click on commit. So the other great thing about Apstra, everything is documented in Apstra. So we document the change in case we need to maybe revert it, go back to it. So now that I've clicked commit, Apstra will go ahead, generate a new CLI for the switches involved. It will push that into the network. And now if we go back into the active tab, now I can see that slowly some of those anomalies will start to disappear. So we can see that numbers are changing now. Some of the switches are becoming green. And finally, everything's gone back to normal. If I go back to the dashboard, I can now see that everything is operating as intended and the problem is resolved. So that was a sort of a quick example to show you how Apstra environment looks like and how it deals with some of those anomalies and how it helps us to resolve them in somewhat different way than what we are used to.
Hey, Bojan, given time, what I might suggest to the audience is we do have a number of additional demos we can customize these demos too. Bojan, do you think you can cover this one in 2 minutes, this very short heat map demo?
Yes, I just want to show this one very quickly. It should be about 2-3 minutes. And again, this demo is just to show you how we look at the traffic heat in the environment. So I've clicked on the traffic heat ribbon. Now I can see what's going on. This is an end-to-end view. Remember, Apstra is managing the whole data center for you. At the top, I have this legend that tells me utilization in terms of traffic across the different devices. So I can see here that if I zoom out of here, I can pretty much conclude that, yeah, probably most of my devices are operating within 41 to 60% utilization. But that one on the bottom right is really operating at a high utilization. So we will put a little warning sign there to tell you what's going on. And as you hover over this, we give you more information. So collectively, this particular leaf switch is now operating at above 81% utilization. So this is the time, for example, for your capacity management to kick in. You may want to go and investigate, do I need to upgrade this switch? Do I need to upgrade the links on this switch? What do I need to do in terms of capacity? Another thing that we can do here, this is sort of a view where I've clicked on one of the servers. I'm looking at the headroom utilization. So now I'm picking up the second server in the network. And when I do that, Apstra will actually draw this end-to-end map for me. So I now know what are the devices, what are the leaf and spine switches that are involved in terms of communication between those two servers. And as we can see, there's some sort of a redundancy in there. So like it's the traffic is load balanced between the spines and the leaves. Examining further on the link, I can see how much traffic is flowing through. I can see that 3.49 gigabits is flowing through, 6.5 gigabits is free. I can also see some other parameters like giants, runs, etc., errors, CRCs. This is a real-time view. So if things change in the network, if utilization changes in the network, then the real-time view will update. So this is an example as that real-time just updated. It showed us that one of the paths now has a little bit less bandwidth than the others. This is quite normal. And we can also look at this through the time series as well. So that's another capability. So that's, again, just a quick sort of a demo of like how we can quickly monitor the health of the data center and what's going on. So that's the two quick demos we could show you today, but of course there's more, and yeah, we can do a live demo with you as well. So over to you, Ivan, again.
Thanks, Bojan. If you can just go back to the PowerPoint with just two closing slides, and we can hit any questions as necessary as well. So look, first of all, I really want to thank DiGiCOR as our, if you just go back one slide, please, Bojan. I just want to thank DiGiCOR as our host here. We are in a lockstep with DiGiCOR. We've had some fantastic customer wins recently, and historically, DiGiCOR's been a brilliant customer for us and a brilliant partner. So please contact us through DiGiCOR. If we go to the next slide, please, Bojan. There's a whole team of people covering the entire continent of Australia, right away through from Ali, who looks after Victoria and Tasmania, Lyndon looking after New South Wales and ACT, Phil looking after Queensland and the Northern Territory, Bernard, WA and SA, and Hock Heng looking after actually New Zealand, so it's actually, sorry, multiple continents, excuse me for that. And of course, Christopher, who's recently joined the team. So you've got a fantastic team here with DiGiCOR. Please contact us through them. We can answer questions now. We can come and talk to you. We can run custom demonstrations, custom workshops. We can even do the planning and design in Apstra for you live and show you how easy it is to build your data center in software and then render it out into hardware. So Samantha, I'm going to turn over to you, and we have about a minute left.
Great, thank you so much. So probably only have time for one question, but we've got a question here. What are the benefits of using Juniper switches with cloud-grade, high-density internet switching for enterprise branch, campus, and data center networks?
Very good question, Samantha. So the benefit is really getting all the power of that service provider grade hardware and software together from Juniper. So we're not just trying to be like our competition. We've inherently come from a background of service provider, hardware, and software in combination that give you a differentiated low-risk solution.
Great, thank you so much. I think that's probably all we have time for today, unfortunately, questions. But thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of our webinar today. The recording link will be sent to your emails after this. And we hope you enjoyed today's session. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have to continue the discussion further. And a huge thank you to Ivan and Bojan for their amazing presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you,
So,
Juniper team. Thank you.
I've sent you the Forrester report as well, so you can go ahead and send that, as well as the solutions at the glance document and anything else you need to send. And the PowerPoint, of course, you can send the...
Yes, of course.
Okay. Thank you, guys. We would like to looking forward to work with Juniper team to win more deals in the coming weeks and months. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.